Yeah, that's what that number is, that's how far that is.
Right, okay. Don't call me right yet. Don't know that. And when you gotta put 2 over 2 into a calculator just to make sure.
Wait.
You guys need one? I got negative 1.
Because it's minus.
Yeah, it should be, because the sine of 2 pi plus something is going to be the same as sine.
Well, I mean, like, it could be all along, so I did most of my head, because I'm too lazy to think about it.
So it should always come with like
Yes, that makes sense.
I think you're looking at it wrong. I think that if you're not using paper, you're making it, you're working harder.
I didn't. Oh, no, this whole thing is this, I just sent it out. So this is just, this stuff, I was trying to line out to, this just now replaces line with 0. So, if this is hard to follow, I understand.
I got 0 to 5 to the part of integrating the line.
I'm not sure. I might have made it.
Where did that extra
I don't know what you did, but I felt my answer was right. When you went to Pilates,
You all
science.
Whoa, I think I messed up something. Oh, wait.
It's,
You write bigger.
Oh, when you're putting in that, okay.
some couple of
It's not sine of 0 though. Sine of 0 plus 2y.
I didn't even put
The
that.
sign is 0 for 1, 0.
So then when you.
Sin of 0 is
I have
0.
a
Yeah, close
sort
to
of
the first
question
one.
here. Isn't sine of
So
2
that-
pi plus something the same thing as sine of 0 plus the same something?
Yeah.
Isn't, so.
Yeah, but
Don't we have a 0 before we go to integrate again? At that point?
you're thinking you're saying this minus the same thing?
Yeah,
Yeah, hold on.
okay,
Because you got to do
I agree with you,
okay.
but here's the deal.
That's why I got it at first.
Okay.
So I want to point out something. So because I think this gets kind of left behind, right? My teaching style is slightly different. I think it's useful for you guys to see me run into mistakes or to do silly things. So he's pointing out correctly that a trigonometric function is cyclical. Namely, how long does it take it to cycle? So these two guys right now already they're already the same. So this is already
0.
0.
Something minus itself.
So, but we're going to keep pushing, right? Because the advantage here is that I don't have to know a lot of tricks to do this, right? I can just keep going.
I noticed that too, when I kept going, it kept giving me different answers.
Oh, okay.
I learned that hard way a long time ago, it's really what sense of it.
So the other thing you guys are probably running up against at this point is that there's a difference between really long and really complicated. This one, if you don't catch any sort of slip trick, is just long. It seems like flipping through some of Anne Marie's things, she likes to sneak those in on you guys. When you're faced with something that's long, your best bet, well, I should say my best bet, if you're anything like me, I have the memory of a goldfish. So while this is a lot of work and I'm not enjoying this, just pushing through. Yes?
Okay, how'd you get over to?
So you can do a U substitution to get there, and integrate respect to U. But in general, just like you were smart enough to earlier tell me about the chain rule in reverse, think about what would happen if I were to take the derivative of this. If I take the derivative of this, negative sine, what's the derivative of negative cosine, I'm sorry?
Positive sign.
The derivative of negative cosine is just sine. I would keep the inside the same, so 2 pi plus 2y. And then what's the, and then chain rule says I have to take the derivative of the inside. The derivative of the inside would be, with respect to y, what's the derivative of the inside here?
2.
2. The 2 cancels out with this 2. I get right back here to where I started.
Wouldn't that logically plus cosine be a negative here in the root?
Yep. Thank you.
So what did we say, when we're taking the role for finding volume every time?
Now, as I know I didn't make it around parts of the room, but I noticed that everybody's work looks slightly different. That's fine. If you notice that right here, you're staring at sine 2y minus sine 2y, that's great. This is now, so the shortcut right here would have been, oh, I'm looking at the integral from 0 to pi over 2 of sine 2y dy. Could have saved that half the board. But if you don't, that's fine too, right? You can just keep pushing through, it just gets really long. Questions?
So so the, I guess the volume underneath this surface,
Uh-huh.
is that because of its oscillation, like we're trying to?
So you can see there from the picture, right? So you try to draw you a picture of what this function's looking like. So now we have to go to and figure out what the interpretation is.
That sounds like there's no space in between.
Well, you have to remember that in some sort of weird way, there's positive and negative area.
You got area, you got a bit area above 0,
Yeah, that is accepted.
because we're talking about profit. Some months they're making money,
Right.
some
Oh,
months
so
they're
much
losing
is
money.
losing money.
Right, so if you go back to your basic calc knowledge, right, this would be 0. Because this is negatively assigned area, this is positively assigned area. And so we've got something, obviously that's happening here. The question is, what's the end interpretation? So, let's see if we can figure out what the interpretation here is.
So it's doing this way, we just- This is profit, right?
Yeah.
So they're gonna give us a non-profit organization. It's a big waste of time.
They're not gonna give you a picture and ask you to think up the function, if that's what you're asking. Yeah, no, they'll give you the functions. They may have to be bound, as we'll see in a little bit. So, let's see if we can interpret the first couple parts of this before we dive into the later parts of the interpretation of what's happening here. So the first is that you notice from the beginning integral, right? So we're trying to fill out this question. The profit over the region of X and Y value is blank. This is interpreted as the company earning or losing blank in the first blank months or so of the fiscal year. They made blank fence sections. So let's look all the way back here. X is talking about what in this setup, and what is Y talking about?
X gives you,
Number of hundreds of fences.
Exactly. So X is talking about the number of fences, and I'm letting the number of fences run from 0 to 2 pi. So roughly how many fence sections are being made here?
About 6 or so.
I don't understand why they're giving you.
Hundreds of them, so about 600.
Okay.
Would it
Yeah.
be like,
Hundreds.
no,
Six,
it's
that
too
doesn't sound
high.
like a lot.
620,
Right.
28.
So it would be roughly, right, 614, or what do you guys estimate pi as? 3.14,
yeah.
right? So 314 times 2, what he said. So roughly 628 fence posts are coming out here. Assuming,
I mean, why is pi used in the first place? I don't understand why pi would be used for length.
huh?
I don't understand why pi would be used for length there. Or what's that's the whole, the length there. Why would pi be used?
Just make math
Well,
easier.
why not?
Oh,
It makes the math easier.
Yeah, it definitely makes this integral easier. He's got a good question. No one's gonna walk up to you and be like, "Hey, you got the report for the first 2 pi days of business?" Like, wait, you want the report for 6 and some change days of business? Why would you just ask for 6 or 7 days of business? But we'll go with it, right? I think that this was chosen specifically to make it hard to interpret, right? 628 fence posts were produced. How much time did it take us to produce those?
Pi over.
a year?
No,
Six
it's
months,
pi,
2 months.
Well, what are we letting Y run from?
Y goes from 0 to power 2.
Why equals time of fiscal year, 1 month, so it's a year.
Starting at
so
July.
it's-
So it's a year.
So it's 18 months?
No, it's power 2.
It's pi over 2, which is how long?
1.57. But
So-
it's in years though.
That goes in months of the year, right?
Yeah.
See, like I said, there's a typo here, so Y equals time of fiscal year in months from July.
Number 3 months?
So, I don't think it's 3 months because of the divided by 2.
Yeah, so it's like.
I interpreted this as 1.5 months after July, right? Because this in decimal form is 1.5.
July and half August. Yeah.
So 1.5 months into the fiscal year, we've made 628 fence posts, and how much money have we made doing so?
Or is it
None.
profit?
It's a profit of 0.
Okay.
So I think the confusing thing, and again, you guys can ask her this when she gets back. You can see that there's a typo because it says suppose PXY gives a profit in thousands of dollars per, and then in the parentheses there, hundreds of fence posts by thousands of dollars. What she's trying to tell you is that this is the rate, right? This is the profit per fence post being made, it's P of X. So it's only confusing if you try to think of P of X as being the actual profit function. P of X is giving us the profit for the very next fence post that comes off our template. Right, so I would say something like, this fence is gonna make us $3, but the next one's gonna make us $2, the next one's gonna make us $8, is what's happening here. P of XY is the slope of our
It happens.
profit function, which means the integral is then the actual profit function.
So this is talking about profit, does this mean that like people are still getting paid, but the company's just not growing at all?
It means we passed what I was talking about earlier, that break-even point, right?
Oh, so make fewer fences. Or more.
Or more, right? Judging from the picture here that we have in the lower corner, this is the graph of the function, right? We know looking at this graph that we're gonna have another downturn in profit, but right now our profit's on the way up, or at the very least it's just now leveled off and getting ready to go down. So
make
we would
more-
keep pumping out fences until our PXY, our profit per fence goes back to 0, right? Because if I want to max, and this is more business theory, right? it depends on where you wanna cut it off at. If I keep making fences past this point, I'll be making less money per fence. But I'll still be making money, right? I just will be making less money. I've already peaked out at making, say I was making $4 per fence, now I started paying people overtime. Well, as soon as I start paying people overtime, that's cutting into the profit per fence. So I'll make money, but I'm gonna lose more money, making it than I did previously. Maybe a little too in depth, but that's what's happening there.
So is it, for instance, from that sentence there, is it when they made 6,283 fence sections? That's the key right there, for that very last,
628 sections.
X's and numbers. And Y's and or Y's and signs. It's always supposed to be problems.
Let's see, moving on, so,
Not making zero,
not making zero, right, so, and again, that's my interpretation.
You're driving a salary.